The Electro-Harmonix Oceans 11 Multi Reverb pedal. It's an affordable way to get a reverb pedal. It has 11 different modes, ranging from classic sounds like plate, spring, and hall, all the way to shimmer, reverse, and so it even got echo and tremolo built in. So as far as reverb is concerned, I think there are three basic types of players. There's the guitar player that says, well, who needs reverb? Any room that I play in has got its own kind of reflections, and I play off of that. That's fine if you're into certain types of music. You know, if you're a rock player, you would generally use delay more than reverb because reverbs can kind of mess up dirty sounds. More on that later. And then there's the guy who says, well, you know, which is the second, I've got reverb in my amp, so why would I go ahead and buy a reverb pedal? I can totally get that. And then there's the guy who uses different kinds of reverb as effects. So I'm thinking about, you know, like alternative, indie kind of players, experimental types, worship players, of course, who would generally like to use reverb pedals. So I would recommend this particular type of pedal and the Oceans 11, which is a very good option for that type of player. If you're the kind of guy who likes to use reverb as an effect, as a dramatic effect. So as I said, it's got your hall, spring, and plate sounds. It's even got a modulated reverb, and by means of this mode button, you can access different kinds of modulation. And when you set it to flange, it's almost like flurb, the flurb setting on the classic Holy Grail Electro-Harmonix reverb pedal is back in this pedal. The delay on this pedal is kind of like a digital sounding delay, and there's a couple of different colors that allow you to go for a more subtle, more rounded kind of delay sound. Pretty usable for slapback, pretty usable for like a long ambient delay. I especially love the shimmer, the trem, and the spring settings on this pedal. Cool thing about the trem is it's got a little bit of reverb mixed in, like you would probably use a trem in surf music in conjunction with reverb. So that's pretty cool. It's got an infinite function, so if you press and hold the foot switch, it's gonna kind of like freeze the reverb trails. It's got tails built in, so when you switch off the pedal, the decay of the reverb is not instantly gone, but it's going to go on for a little bit. So that sounds very musical too. You can relocate that infinite switch, and well, you know, yeah, it's got a lot of different modes that I would probably never use, but I see this as kind of an inspiration tool. I noticed when I was recording the audio parts for this video, which always come first in my new sum format, I noticed that I kind of didn't hark back to the ideas that I generally play, but it really made me think along a different line and play different stuff. So it's definitely a very creative pedal. Indeed. Now, bear in mind that when you're using reverb in front of the amp and the amp has a dirty sound, it's usually not going to sound very good, not on most settings. Because the reason for that being is when you go from your guitar into a reverb pedal, into a dirty amp, you're actually distorting the reverb. So you might want to turn down on the tone control, and there's a couple of types that do sound good. Like the spring setting, if you kind of ease back on the tone control, you know, like the 60s outboard spring tanks, they were used in front of the amp too. So even in surf music, you know, Dick Dale, he had a pretty loud sound with the reverb tank in front of the amp. It's going to sound better. But on most settings, more of the processed kind of sounds, it's not going to sound as good. A better way would be to put it in the effects loop. I'm not a big fan of that because, well, you know, it involves a lot of cables and relocating pedals and stuff like that. You might you know, like beg to differ, but it's going to sound better on the more digital kind of reverb sounds like shimmer. It's going to sound better if you have the drive in front of the pedal. So you can achieve that by putting the pedal in a loop. Not all effects loops are that great, I feel, or run a dirt pedal in front of it. So, of course, there are no rules, right? So if you use a dirty amp and you feel like using that tremolo or that mod setting and distorting it from the amp, it's going to give you an entirely different sound, but it's definitely not going to be a very generic sound that you hear in a lot of different musical styles. Of course, you can use it as an always-on reverb if you like really love the plate setting. You can use it in that way, but I recommend putting the dirt in front of it. So here's the third and final part of this video. In this format, the third part is always the more part. So here's a close-up of the Oceans 11. Runs off a regular 9-volt power supply, which you probably have lying around if you're into effects pedals, but fortunately it comes with its own power supply. This one, the bottom left rotary knob, selects the 11 different modes, and then you have this little push button, and on certain settings, on most settings, you can cycle through the green, orange, and red mode of the effect, which, for example, in the case of the mod setting, it's going to give you chorus or flange or that kind of thing, and when it's on the echo setting, it's going to give you a little bit of a different kind of echo. So experiment with that, definitely do that. Then you have your standard procedure effects level control. So all the way up is full effect, all the way down is no effect, and that way you can blend the effect with your original dry guitar signal. Time control, so how big or how long the reverb is going to be on the echo setting. That's going to be the longest. Delay time, this is going to be the shortest, and you'll find that slapback setting right at about 9 o'clock over here, because I really love that. In that echo mode, the tone control is a feedback control ranging from 1 repeat to, you know, like more repeats or infinite. doesn't do self-oscillation, unfortunately, but on all of the reverb kind of modes, this is used to brighten or darken your sounds. So if you press and hold the foot switch while playing, it's going to kind of freeze the reverb trails so you can solo over it. So it's kind of like a freeze pedal in that sense too. You can relocate that infinite switch with this separate output jack. It's got just a guitar input, mono out. So there you have it. The Oceans 11 multifunction reverb by Electro-Harmonix.